be performing a monologue from the short play titled Disturbed by Brad Boson. In this piece, I will be playing Daphne, a woman, and she meets a man in a city hospital named Bob. Bob reveals to Daphne that the reason he's at the hospital is that he found his father who had shot himself, and that he was the one who brought him to the hospital. After Daphne expresses her heartfelt sympathies for him and decides to leave, Bob reveals that he couldn't resist and he was only joking. This had been the last straw in a conversation that was, to say the least, disconcerting for Daphne. How could you say that about your own father? Not a big deal? Okay. Do you want to hear a joke about my father? One night, when I was 12 years old, my father decided to decorate the house for Christmas. He'd never done it before, but he just got a big raise at work, and I guess he wanted to show off to the rest of the neighbors. So, a week before Christmas, Dad went out and he bought all the decorations and lights that he could find. It had been pretty picked over by then. There wasn't much left, but he still managed to bring home a lot. Oh, and one store owner was so excited to get rid of all of his things so close to Christmas that he even threw in a Santa mannequin in the costume. So, of course, Dad brought it home and he built his entire display around it. And we didn't have a big brick chimney like you see in the books and the movies, so Dad put him on top of the roof, peeking over, looking into my parents' bedroom. And he put red lights around the windows, and green lights on the roof. And the combination of the two crisscrossed up and down, and then all the bushes and the trees. It's beautiful. I remember it was really cold that year. So, Dad did all this stuff with these big boots and these huge gloves. A giant coat that he had bought with the rest of the money from his raise. And I can't imagine how he could climb up that ladder and hang all those lights with all those heavy clothes on. But he did. He hung them all. In between each strand of lights, he would come down from the ladder, pick me up off the ground, spin me around, and set me on top of his shoulders so I can get a better look. It took almost a week for him to finish, to get it just the way he wanted it. But when he finally finished, the entire town came out to see. Everybody. People were driving around the block over and over again just to look at our house. I was so happy. I was so sure this was going to be the best Christmas in the history of Christmases. Living in this cocoon of color and light. The rest of the world lining up outside to admire it. On Christmas Eve, Dad went downtown to this bar that he always used to hang out in. He liked to spend Christmas Eve with his buddies, because on Christmas, all the aunts and uncles would come over, and I guess him being hungover was a good excuse not to be a good host. So, anyways, by the time Dad got home, it was way past midnight, and Mom had unplugged the Christmas lights for the night. She couldn't sleep when they were on because they would shine in through the window. So, the only light came from the street light at the end of the block. I guess the darkness and having drink all night. Dad mistook the Santa mannequin on the roof for a burglar or something. Because I woke up to hear shouting out on the lawn. Gunshots. Broken glass. So I ran into Mom and Dad's room and I looked in and I didn't know what was happening. It was so cold. It felt like someone had left the window open. Mom and Dad weren't in bed. So I peered in some more. On the ground was my mother. In the middle of all this shattered glass. And blood. She must have been standing in the window when I stood there. I couldn't move, I couldn't say anything. I was still half asleep. It felt like a dream. And then I heard the front door open, and I heard running and footsteps up the stairs. I was so scared, I thought whoever had been shouting out on the lawn had come in to get me next. I couldn't hide, there was nowhere to hide, so the only thing I could think of was to lay down on the ground next to my mother and play dead. My dad got to the door of the bedroom. He saw me and my mother laying there. And all that blood. He said something. Couldn't recognize it. I was so scared, and I was trying so hard not to move. He stumbled out of the doorway. He started sobbing and saying, "No, no, no!" over and over again. No, no. And then I recognized his voice. I realized it was Dad. Before I could say anything, there was another gunshot. And he wasn't crying anymore. Guess my father didn't have time to tell a funny joke.